Kinda.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Blue we're good. All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call us to order and give Joe a minute to sit, have a chance to sit down here. Tonight we're here for a public hearing. We're going to hear 4 items this evening. The first is a continued discussion regarding a draft ordinance to amend driveway width rules on residential city alleys and alley-like roadways. So, Janelle, do you want to kind of summarize what this is intended to do?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mayor. So this is a draft ordinance, and this is the recommendation from the Planning Commission. They did recommend approval unanimously of this version. And what this says, it's addressing the width of a driveway off of alleys and certain streets that are narrower or have unique features to them, that they can have a driveway width at the property line as wide as they would like, as long as they comply with other sections of code. So the proposal, and it's in 2 different places in the code, one in the zoning code, which is 197, and the other is in 167, which is the streets section of the city's code, where it says, there shall be no maximum width of a curb cut driveway entrance at the right-of-way on all alleys in the following streets: Bay Avenue, Bethel Alley, Bradley Lane, St. Paul Street, Midland Avenue, Orr Street, Mall Alley, Ship Carpenter Square, and West Mulberry Street west of 4th Street. So that's the proposed ordinance, and that's the recommendation from the Planning Commission. This started from councilpersons Ritzerts and Elder, and I'm happy to answer questions, and I believe they are as well.
You answer one of mine, which is it does call out the specific areas that we're talking about within the ordinance.
Correct.
Okay.
If it's not named, it has to comply with the other section of the code.
And that's B1 there, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
It's B1 and then C. So you're going to find it on lines in the ordinance if we're following along. It's lines 74 through 77, and the same wording for lines 95 through 98.
I like that you called out the actual streets. I think that's what the mayor's saying. Rather than this being like this umbrella, you actually are very clear in how the ordinance was written. I think it's really clear, and it's meeting need. Then I compliment my 2 councilpersons who took this effort.
I have a comment to make. It was brought to our attention, and I talked with Alex about this. On lines 100 through 111, the first part, just to be consistent in the draft, usually we break things into sections. But sections, it should say Section 3, the definition of the term alley, in Chapter 197, zoning, subsection 106 of the Municipal Code of the City of Lewis, Delaware, as amended, be the same as is hereby further amended by making insertions as shown by underlining and deletions as shown by striking the following. And so, number 1, instead of one is a roadway, is a one-way roadway. The second one, where it says a service roadway, it should be 2, does not provide access to public property and is a secondary means of access to abutting property and is not intended for general traffic circulation. Okay, so I'd like to have that amended and changed in the draft, and I shared this with Alex. You can take a look at this if you'd like, Janelle.
Yeah, 'cause I just want to make sure from a zoning perspective, the definition is the same in every place, because there is currently a definition of alley in Chapter 197, and then there's a different definition of an alley in 170, which is the Subdivision and Land Development Code, and we need to make sure there's consistency through them.
Consistency needs to be in the other section of code, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know, is there a comment? Can we take a comment from one of the members that...
We can't take comments. finished with public comments. But what are you, Councilman Elder, I'm confused what you're proposing. Are you proposing a slightly different definition?
Just a slightly, little bit of a rewording there.
And then obviously goes, as our city planner said, in both places. So it's consistent in the code, but what is this change? What?
This significantly changes the definition of an alley. In 197, an alley is defined as a strip of land on which there is right-of-way, municipal or privately owned, on which no dwelling or storefront, serving as the rear entrance to two or more properties. And then in 197, it states a service roadway providing a secondary means of public access to abutting property and not intended for general traffic circulation. And what is proposed in the ordinance is different than both of those.
And what you're saying, Joe, is the language you propose we should have in both sections of code? Or are you just wanting to clean up what's
Yeah, it was basically just a cleanup of some of the wording.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, here, I will.
Yeah, I'm not following.
What's the problem with the code that's in front of us?
Right, that's what my question.
Yeah.
It's,
But what's the problem that prompted you to want to do this? Just so we understand.
well, it just was to clean up the language here a little bit. Instead of a survey, a service roadway providing, it just says, does not provide access to public property and is a secondary means of access to abutting property and is not intended for general traffic circulation.
Right, and that is in fact the same
That's
language that is included in this draft that
It
we're
is.
working from
Yeah.
here.
I think it's the same intent.
And same,
It's the same language.
It's the same language.
I don't
I was
see any
confused.
difference. I mean verbatim.
Then what are we doing if it's,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
why I was
understand.
confused.
It's
I
the same,
think it's-
you said
it
it's
may
the
have been
same language, but what's different? I'm sorry, I'm not following.
What was your first part of does not provide? What was your first?
Yes, does
part?
not-
I think that was the, what did you?
a service roadway providing,
Okay, so
You're adding a service roadway.
yes.
I'm just
Okay.
going to be clear, the Planning Commission did not recommend a change to the definition of alley. The Planning Commission recommended the change to lines 74 through 77 and 95 through 98. They did not recommend a change to the definition of alley.
Right.
And you know, one of the things that's on this, you always might help, Councilman Winter.
I don't see it on yet. Give it a tap. There it goes. It's gone now. There you go.
I had a good conversation with Deputy Mayor Saliba. If this meets the intent, let's get this, because it's been through the process.
Okay.
If then we have problems, and as we know, Congress does it, legislatures, we can always, and all ordinances, these are living documents. But I think rather, if you propose a change, it has to go back through the whole process.
Well, I didn't know, and
Yeah.
one of the reasons that I brought it up was because I thought it would tidy it up. I got a little bit more input that thought this would tidy it up a bit. And I do know that when we've put through other ordinance, they've even changed during the meetings.
If they are ordinances that are under our domain,
Yeah.
we can change. But when they are in code that other commissions are responsible for, we are required to go through that process again. And so that process would delay the benefit that you are trying to
Trying to get-
We can
achieve.
change
Now,
this,
that doesn't
correct.
mean that you're wrong. It may be that
Yeah.
we should
Yeah,
change
right.
it next time around, but
Okay.
I would hate to delay what could be 2 to 3 months to go through that
Sure.
process.
I understand.
The LPC are working on definitions.
Yes, they are.
They have very diligently have been working on hundreds of
I'm willing
definitions.
to back off on it. I just brought it up because I thought it would clean that up a
Yeah.
little bit.
All right.
All right. So,
Yeah.
is that for the dais, any more questions from the dais? Okay, so then let's take questions if there are any from the public. And I forgot to mention in the beginning, let's keep it to 3 minutes. And if there's someone, you agree with something that someone said before, you can state that. And we will also take emails and letters and written until, what date are we thinking?
September 27th at 4 p.m.
September 27th at 4 p.m. So if you don't get to finish what you're attempting to say within your 3-minute or 4-minute window, then you can send us an email that elaborates on it a bit
Yeah.
more. Okay. All right. Come on up, Julia, come on.
Julia Carey, Ship Carpenter Square. I don't need 3 minutes, I need 30 seconds just to say that we are grateful to our council members for taking this initiative on. It's a year and a half in the making, and so as the HOA president for Ship Carpenter Square, our community is very encouraged and welcomes the mayor and council voting yes. And again, appreciate your leadership and your patience and tenacity.
We're grateful you didn't ask us to define what a square is.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Bruce.
Hi, I'm Bruce Bolander, also from Ship Carpenter Square, and one of the members of the Board of Directors of Ship Carpenter Square's HOA. We're comfortable with deleting from the draft ordinance this revised definition of alley, and just for the time being anyway, just going with the existing definition, since the other two parts of the ordinance specifically name Ship Carpenter Square and the 600 other streets. I do think there's a typo in the spelling of Bethel.
Oh, you're right.
Is it EL or AL?
Yeah, it is
I believe
EL,
it's
not
EL, not
AL.
AL.
Good
fix
catch,
that.
good catch.
Thank you, Mr. Bolander. Dennis, come on up.
Dennis Reardon, 1302 Bay Avenue, and I'd just like to agree with these guys that this is something that needed to be done. It'll cure a lot of problems, and particularly as to Bay Avenue. I mean, Bay Avenue used to be an alley, and you're just putting it back where it was.
Dennis always wanted to live in an alley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay. Is there anyone online, Blue, that's raised their hand? Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Can I
Okay.
just speak for a second,
Yeah,
just
sure.
quickly
Go ahead.
to what Councilperson Marasco mentioned, and certainly thank the primary sponsors of this, Councilman Ritzert and Elder, for their good work on this. And as a next step, we've had conversations, and just as an intro to it, we're thinking that in the future, and we're hoping to have this on our next workshop, just the discussion about corrective measures, corrective ordinances that come up after an ordinance is passed. I mean, we're not perfect by any means, and language like Councilman Elder is suggesting, is very likely appropriate. But sometimes in the drafting, we're doing a million things, and we have spoken to our city planner about this. She has a whole, what did you say, Janelle? You have a list on the wall in her office of, these aren't material changes. These are things that kind of clean up the intent of ordinances. And I think hopefully in the near future, we'll discuss this at our September 26th workshop, as well as everyone understanding that we're not going to get it right every time, but in terms of the actual language, but hopefully we'll have these corrective ordinances that come up, that we are cleaning up the ordinances that need to be cleaned up. And as we move forward, we'll have a much cleaner, more precise code.
Okay. All right, so that, Blue, just take one more look. I don't see any hands raised, so, and I don't see any more hands raised in the audience, so we'll move on to the next one, which is agenda item 2, discussion regarding proposed ordinance to amend Chapter 197 zoning section 55C, building height of the Municipal Code, to eliminate the calculation of building height in flood-prone areas. This proposed ordinance is to remove conflict with reference to zoning and remove the roof pitch of buildings within the floodplain. So, Janelle, you want to give us another synopsis here, if you don't mind?
Thank you. So this is a recommendation from the Environmental Subcommittee, and the Planning Commission has heard this and did recommend unanimously to approve this ordinance. What this does is removes a section of code that there is no R2 zone or R2H, formerly known as the LB Lewis Beach District. It's actually R3, which kind of makes this section of code unenforceable. So, let's fix that. And then the second is the measurement of the building height. The city has never looked and measured a building with that requirement. They uniformly look at building height across the board, which is measured from the center line of the street. So this would just keep that within the current practice, and then make it more uniform as how buildings height is considered throughout the city. So that's what it does. It does not impact any property.
Meaning it'll continue to be measured from the center of the...
It'll
Street.
correct.
And that would be the only language that
Correct.
addresses measuring.
Yes.
Correct.
Any building throughout the city is measured from the center line of the street, and this will make sure that is carried out uniformly throughout the city.
Right.
And the Planning Commission, in assigning the Environmental Subcommittee responsibility, asked us to clean up code, clarify definitions. You've seen at council in the last year more of our new codes, but this was one by Mr. Reardon, our subcommittee, who took on one of the tasks of looking at code that it just doesn't, it's not appropriate. We don't use it. It was just, it's just a mistake, just as the deputy mayor was saying earlier. So that's what this is. This is total cleanup.
I was going to say, this is a perfect
This is a
example of
perfect
cleaning.
example of that.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump the gun. I was going to segue to that. I thought
Sorry.
that's what it was when we moved to this one,
Yes.
but,
Yeah, this one's just a good cleanup.
Okay, so again, let's start this time with the online audience. Anyone waving their yellow hand up there? No, okay. How about from the live audience? Is everyone, okay.
Any
All right.
yellow
Don't,
hands?
you know. Okay. Going once, going twice? Okay, we'll move on then. Again, we'll take similar comment, September 27th, end of day, or 4.
4 p.m.
Okay, so that moves us to agenda item 3, discussion regarding proposed ordinance to amend Chapter 197 zoning, Section 72. This is the purposes and applicability of the Municipal Code to reference the city's floodplain code is based on the FEMA model ordinance to comply with FEMA regulations. Okay. Do you want to take this one?
I can take this one, and I want to give credit to the Environmental Subcommittee, Barbara Curtis, who, like Mr. Reardon, handled the first one. She handled this one. When we first started, we started looking. We didn't realize we were looking at FEMA code. And sorry, FEMA, we saw so many problems with FEMA code. And so Ms. Curtis was identifying them, and then the city planner and the city consulting engineer said, you guys can't touch FEMA code. We didn't know we were touching FEMA code. So our recommendation was, so no one else has to go through this process, again, that Ms. Curtis went through in detail, is our code should say, it's based on the FEMA ordinance.
Right.
Because we're part of the NFIP, we have to adopt their ordinance. We don't get to say anything to the feds. So by putting that early on in the ordinance, the Environmental Subcommittee felt that just clarified, and the Planning Commission also.
So this is another text amendment?
It's a text amendment, and it's a clarification that the feds went out.
Yeah, I give up, huh?
Yes, exactly.
I surrender.
But they could use Ms. Curtis to look through their code, I must say.
Is there anything else to add to that?
No.
That's a pretty good synopsis, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, again, we'll start with the room. Anyone have questions on that? So it's, again, just an amendment essentially to what was recently updated.
Right.
So. Okay. Anyone online? All right, moving right along. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is, I believe, the last one, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Tim's like, yes, it is. Let's keep moving. Okay. He's like, okay. All right. This is item 4. Discussion regarding a proposed ordinance to amend Chapter 197 zoning attachment 4, table of dimensional regulations for non-residential zones in municipal code to amend the freeboard requirement and building height for commercial, institutional, industrial, and industrial zoning districts. So again, I think in many ways this is we passed the residential and we didn't include these zones when we did. So I think this is an opportunity to, one, allow the public, to know that those were not included when it was passed, but it was recommended by LPC?
Yes.
That is the case, right?
And this is voluntary, where the residential is mandatory, or will
Correct.
be mandatory in a few years. This is just a voluntary option
Right.
Okay.
for any of the commercial zoning districts, institutional, others that are on this
Okay.
page.
Right.
And LPC had hearing on these
Yes.
and included, so when they came to recommend their vote, they had included this as part of their
Yes,
hearing?
this
Okay.
is the LPC recommendation. The version for the mayor and council was tweaked a little bit to take this line out and put it into the notes of the code.
Which line was that, Jenna, that you're talking about,
Let me get there.
please?
149, 50, 150, and 151.
Exactly.
Yeah, so those are options. You can either have it in, or either way, you're going to need the subnotes, or the notes, but you can have the line or not the line, and that's just an option for the
That's correct. It's just an
council.
option. It's supposed to be the same substantively. I just thought it was tidier to have less columns and rows in the table, but it's intended to do the same thing. The public notice requirement is satisfied either direction you want to go. You have the option for either ordinance.
So is that something that when we would vote on this at our meeting, that we would have to choose one or the other? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, either way, you're going to have the note at the bottom,
Okay.
but it's if you want that extra line or not in the table.
I personally like it in the table. I think
Yeah.
it clarifies for all of the builders particularly. So not to say that it's incorrect, it's just that, do all of us look at notes?
I'm with it, totally
Okay,
with you.
right,
You got
yeah.
to err on the side of,
So again, what I think, I want to make sure I understand so what you're saying is that line 149 through 151, is that correct?
Yes.
Would they would be included in the table as a footnote,
Yes.
in effect,
So
right?
all you're really looking at is the visual of the table.
Yes,
Because
yes.
the text and everything is the same, and the intention is the same. It's just, do you prefer the look of the table with that information in
Yes,
there and the
right.
notes, or just the notes?
I
But I'm
understand.
hearing both.
Both. Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it was clear. And that's also consistent with the
Correct.
way that residential was adopted.
Right.
I have also a question on just timing. So when city council approves an ordinance, how long does it take to officially get on the website, and who double checks that it is? Because I think, I mean, we're all humans and we make errors, and I'm not pointing my finger at anybody. I'm really just asking a process question, because as soon as it's approved, what is the process within city staff so that the public understands? Because they can be looking at old ordinances, and ordinances get fuzzy. So how do they know it's a new, and what's the process that you use internally?
So as soon as council takes action to change an ordinance, then any changes that council made to that draft ordinance obviously will be made by our city solicitor, and then a final version will be sent to our city clerk for signature by the secretary of council to sign in. Once that's been signed, then we send it to general code, and it does go in. If we've had a lot of changes in our general code online version, then we can say, okay, general code, stop it here, implement those changes. Otherwise, it'll sit as a new law. Is that correct, Ashley?
It's effective, I think, when I
Yes.
sign,
And
right?
It's
that's in the-
effective when the secretary signs, but if there is a delay, not due to the city, but
Correct.
there's a delay into the city code process, can we put up on our own website, this ordinance has been
recently voted.
recently voted on? Because I feel like there's a gap that none of us can control, but if
Right.
I'm a developer, or it doesn't even a developer, if I'm anyone looking at code, I don't
It
know
might
if
be
I'm really
cool,
looking
good
at
to
the
have a
right.
section that just says
Yeah.
ordinances approved in 2024, or
Yes.
something like that. or-
Yes, something
yeah.
like that just makes it clear. That would be helpful.
I think-
Because it is out of our control when the code,
It is.
People.
It does sit
Yeah.
in new laws under that tab in general code if you were to go to our online portal. But yes, we
Right.
can do that.
But
Because it doesn't go.
in practice, though, when someone comes, they're going to be operating under that ordinance, so they'll be instructed by building department.
Yes, so when they
Right.
get reviewed,
Yeah.
Janelle will know that
Exactly.
council made the
We're-
change.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so what I typically do if you make a decision on a Monday,
Right.
I'm either emailing staff that night or letting them know the next day and go, these are the new changes, they are now in effect. We are going to be following those, and I usually like to make copies, so they'll have like the draft version until we can get the final one, so they know what they're working off of, because we want to make sure they have the most up-to-date information. So we're providing that to the public.
Yeah, and my question was in no way
No.
saying that we had an internal problem at all. It's just saying there is a delay when it's the official on the website, and so I'm a residential person, a property owner, and I'm coming to the city website, and then I meet with the city planner, and she's got a different ordinance than I do. That just causes friction when we don't need friction, because they need to know that it changed. Right, I'm just trying to keep that a little bit more in a better time for the public.
Yeah, I think we've got some options.
Great.
Okay, so let's start again with the online community. No one? Okay. All right. Rick, come on up.
Yeah, just Rick Quill, 407 East Market Street. Just a few comments. It's a gift to live in Lewis, especially on a day like today. And I think it's a privilege when you come before a working council and administration that works hand in hand with the citizens. So I think it's a little redundant, but Chris Shaw wrote some stuff, and you might already have, but I'll just give you a copy of each. What he wrote to you. I'm sorry, let me pass.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead. You may approach.
Thank you.
When he walks back,
Where's
You have to bring on. Presumptuous of me.
It really was.
Where in the past, I would have been tackled. Where's security having Definitely, I would have deserved it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Rick.
Anyway, I think we had a discussion about this, and one of our projects we were working on, and we spent a considerable amount of time with architects and engineers, and we're coming to fruition after about 8 years working on this particular site at 203 Savannah Road. And I feel fortunate that I've teamed up with the National Builders of the Year. And let me repeat that. It's the Shell brothers, but it's Chris Shell in particular, and Jeff Anamone. So we're going to put a worthy project down there I think the city will be proud of, and I think you've seen it before. And after I had this voted on, I think, Tim, you'd come to me a couple years ago, you really liked the project. Some other people, it was a 5-0 vote to do this project, and we want to do it justice. And we feel with this height increase, with the flood zone, it's really relevant to what we're trying to do, to put the best product possible for the city to be proud of. So we really don't have any more comments, and we appreciate you guys zeroing your attention to this issue. We thank you.
Dennis, come on up. Yep.
Dennis Reardon, 13 and 2 Bay Avenue. Totally in support of this, and I would recommend that the language be put in the table of dimensions, not in a footnote. It's so easy to miss something in a footnote, so I agree with Amy.
Agree.
All right, take care,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you, Dennis. He's saying, you know what she's saying is basically the fact that it's you put in the
Yes,
in
I
the table of
understand.
dimension. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
No one? All right. This might be a quick one. I think there's a
Record for 4
Yeah, there's
items.
actually, you know,
Yeah. Anyone
Yeah.
online?
there's a soccer match at Cape at 6:30.
Anyone want to talk?
Yeah. Del Mar Cape at 6:30. So. Yeah. Okay. With that, then, again, we'll take written comments on any of these things until 4 o'clock on the 27th of September. And then just a reminder to everyone, on Monday, we have a regular meeting, and the agenda has been posted for that. So study up on it, Dennis, and we'll see you on Monday. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Cheers.